Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1NC. So glad to have everybody. Looking forward to a great presentation today. We have Edward Dawson from Selflessly. So without further ado, let us welcome Edward. Edward, go ahead. It's all yours.
Good morning, everybody. Well, first and foremost, thank you all for letting me share the Selflessly story and giving me the time to tell you a little bit about what our mission is. It's actually, like I was just saying, I'm from Fayetteville. It's nice to get reconnected with the old stomping grounds. But with that being said, I'll just kind of go ahead and jump right into it. So I'll share my screen and tell you guys a little bit about what we're trying to do over here at Selflessly. So Selflessly was an idea. There are two co-founders that kind of came up with this idea about 4 years ago based on their experiences with working with nonprofits and their experiences with how difficult it is to be connected to philanthropic opportunities in the corporate space. So our mission is to create an inclusive culture, company culture, by way of philanthropy. And the way that we wanted to go about this was give small, medium businesses the same sort of bells and whistles that enterprise organizations have when it comes to aligning employees to philanthropic opportunities and creating philanthropic programs and being connected to nonprofits. So research has actually kind of shown that companies benefit and young employees are actually prospecting companies to work for based on what they do with community engagement, how well they're involved in the community, what are they actually doing to help out. So this is something that Selflessly, our attempt is to try to fill in those gaps and make it easy for any employee to see the different philanthropic opportunities that are going on in the area and have the ability to volunteer or make monetary donations to those opportunities. This is also something that our goal is to help create a more inclusive culture in a company. So in the human resources department, we decided to implement a way that an HR director, your chief people officer, can really track and understand where their employees are choosing to do their giving and volunteering. So the way that we actually built this system out, this is something that we are now confident to present to organizations, and we want to have a release date of April 1st. But we've actually been able to make a partnership with an organization called Volunteer Match, which concurrently uploads opportunities based on your geographical locations for you to take a look at and read about and volunteer. So if I'm an employee for a small, medium business, this is actually what I would see when I sign into the platform in the morning. So if I were to click on my own personal dashboard, you can see that there are metrics that are being tracked. It can show you exactly where you have volunteered up until this particular date, which organizations you have decided to help out, and what opportunities are currently going on in the area. So we all know that if something is easier to use, you'll probably use it a little bit more often. So that's sort of what our goal is to slowly but surely give companies the tools to, at the very least, create a philanthropic culture. So with that being said, this is more or less what we have, where you're able to actually very easily search for any 501c3 in the country. We were actually able to pull all this information from the IRS database, which is constantly changing, but right now there's about 1.8 million nonprofits. And you're also able to look at the opportunities based on the area where you're located. So if I were to type in 28303, we can see if there's anything going on at the moment. And these would be the opportunities that are going on today that you're able to volunteer, read about, and see if it's something that aligns with you. With that being said, we're actually able to create group activities outside of these nonprofits that you can be aligned with. So if there's not necessarily a volunteering opportunity going on today in Fayetteville, maybe you can create a group activity to go clean up Mazurk Park, how to help out clean up Hay Street, things like this. And we try to make that as easy as possible, because in normal organizations, this typically takes time with Excel spreadsheets and emailing back and forth, and lacking of understanding when people may or may not show up to the event. So we tried to make that very easy with our group activities. Simply, if you wanted to create a group activity, you just simply plug in a title. Clean Up Moore Square, that's a park here in Raleigh. So if I just wanted to do that, I can actually add a description. Hey, everyone. Let's go clean. You can upload an image of that particular group activity, select the skills needed, which actually goes back to an individual's profile where they can actually fill this out. Ultimately, though, what you can do is put the street address where everybody needs to meet up for the group activity, select the start date, the end date. We have a medical waiver form, and we have a volunteers required. So if you were to select 50 volunteers, this would concurrently upload and notify every employee in the company that, hey, we have a group event going on. We want to do some community engagement and help clean up the town. But ultimately, they can sign up for this event, and everybody would have an understanding, and it saves a lot of time for that HR personnel to organize cultural event, community engagement sort of events. So with that being said, that's more or less the bread and butter of Selflessly. What I am looking for are suggestions of smaller nonprofits that need a little bit more marketing efforts that we could help promote on our community spotlight once we begin to make some partnerships with this particular individual. Well, with particular, once we gain some clients throughout North Carolina. We're also looking for possible benefit brokers that might see value in presenting this to their clients. And we're looking for suggestions for possible things that we need to add on our roadmap that could help smaller businesses. So with that said, you have now seen Selflessly. Are there any sort of questions?
So how much does the service cost, Edward? So if a business or a nonprofit was interested, explain your revenues.
So with nonprofits, we actually sell to, our business model is to work with their corporate partners so that the nonprofits can be more easily connected with their corporate partners. If a nonprofit were to use this, we would essentially give it to the nonprofit. But our goal is to try to sell to their corporate partners to give everybody in that organization a license to Selflessly so that they can actually see that particular nonprofit more often than not. So for example, if there's a nonprofit that had a corporate partner that wanted to use this, the nonprofit would be consistently highlighted in the community spotlight so that every employee for that particular corporate partner would be able to see those events going on in the upcoming weeks. So you would actually give a license to, one of the individuals of the nonprofit that want to touch base more with the particular employees at their corporate partners, and they would work with HR to get more recognition and more visualization to what's going on. Does that make sense?
It does, but I was looking more at your revenue streams.
So our revenue stream is, so yes, we typically work with nonprofits to get introduced to their corporate partners, and that's how we sell to them. So that's sort of how the typical conversations go. But our business model is to sell to the organizations. We charge $60 per license for an annual fee. And that's essentially how we go about it.
I want to kind of follow up on what Lori was asking. I'm just wanting to clarify. So when you have a nonprofit that's connected with corporate partners, those are the people who pay for your service?
Yes, the corporate partners do.
So they pay so that their events can be shown on your website.
The corporate partners pay so every employee has the ability to select and choose any nonprofit that they would like to participate or volunteer for. So it gives the employee more exposure to different philanthropic opportunities. It makes it easy for the human resources department we give them the tools to create a giving culture, make it easier for that to happen.
Okay, so if I get what you're saying. So if I want to have events like we're having a fundraiser or something like that, is that an additional charge to get that posted, or is that part of my service?
No, that's part of the service. So I'll just show you here, for example, down here, this is actually the administrative side of the dashboard. So if you clicked on sponsorship, we actually did a 5K run earlier this year. To create a sponsorship, you literally just type in the title right here, you put a description, and you have a link to that particular landing page for the sponsorship. So when you create it, individuals get a notification throughout the company. You're actually able to post this on social media so that citizens outside of the company can get more exposure to the sponsorship to help raise money, to make it an easier effort and really spider out more. So it's as simple as that. You put a title on here, the description, you create the link to whatever that particular sponsorship may be. Then once you create this, it notifies everybody through the company through this activity feed so that they can actually view that particular nonprofit or sponsorship, read about it, and decide if it's something that they align with.
Okay, so that was kind of brings up a follow-up two-parter. So if I'm a smaller, medium-sized company and I'm not trying to post events on here, I just want my employees to be able to see opportunities. Is that the same fee as somebody who goes all out and does the activities and all of that?
Yep, it's the same fee.
So it's a flat fee regardless of how much I use it?
Yes, this is a all out of the box solution to help HR, give them those kind of tools instead of using Excel, emails, and Slack. This is something that we're hopeful and we've seen that can save them a ton of time and money. That's really what it does.
So is there a sliding scale in terms of number of employees? So if I only have 5 versus if I have 500?
No, well, our target market right now are 0 to the 200 person sort of organizations. As we ourselves are growing, we want to see really how this benefits through those small medium organizations, because when you get up to about a 500 person organization, what we've seen is that the cost for a solution like this is it becomes very expensive. So our goal is to get those small, medium businesses the same sort of tools for a fraction of the price. Does that make sense?
It does. I would just hate to think if I'm a small business with only 5 people that I'm paying the same fee as somebody who has 500.
Well, yeah, the scalability, we don't have a organization of 500. We're actually, our list pricing is $60 per license, which we're comfortable with because that's what we see as sort of the number where we are able to give a white glove onboarding process. We're a 4-person organization, as well as kind of give that continued support. Now, when you get up to 500 individuals, there's going to be other kind of conversations that come into this mix. It will also kind of come out to which kind of departments you want to work with, things like that. So as we scale the business, we'll be able to build out that model a little bit more. But right now, this is what we're comfortable with presenting.
And the other part of that is if I do pay your $60 and I want to know what the $60 does, do I get to pick which activities appear for my staff, or is that anything that and everything that you have is exposed to them?
Yeah, we're working with you to see, maybe you have particular nonprofits that you've been historically aligned with. Yeah, that's absolutely and there's obviously particular nonprofits that I probably wouldn't donate to. So these are things that every one of our early on sort of clients we've had conversations with, and it's very easy to work with them to sort of put blockers and funnel those different opportunities that are consistent with company policy.
Well, I'm going to jump in again since nobody else jumped. That brings me to the next question. What kind of screening do you do? Because there may be events out there, things that people want to post on there that do not necessarily go along with my corporate values.
So HR is responsible for creating those events. We don't allow for employees to. They are able to sign up for those particular group activities. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm just thinking if I have, I want to give my staff an opportunity to give back and to do service and all of that, but there might be some nonprofits out there that just totally go against my corporate values and what my organization represents, because we see that all the time in the news. Do I have the ability to screen those out?
Yes. Yeah. That's where our white glove onboarding process comes in, where we sit down, kind of get aligned with what you envision. And yeah, you can absolutely block out. We don't allow you to donate to the KKK, for instance. Like, it's not, that's something that's very easy to block out. There's always been conversations like that. Good questions. Thank you. That all very helpful.
Yeah, Edward, can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm kind of with Cindy on this, that I think that your revenue stream is a little too balanced, you might say, because I think that those who have the 500 employees and have all these opportunities to be able to display stuff obviously get a greater advantage than a very small organization. The second thing that I wanted to mention was that your focus on this Million Cups deal is that you're looking for how to reach real small companies. Suppose those companies aren't sponsored, corporate sponsored. Suppose they're community sponsored or et cetera. How do they tap into your service?
Well, I think you're talking from a nonprofit aspect. Like the small companies, this is just really this is a tool to create that employee engagement with the community. So small companies don't really have a sponsorship, so to speak. So it's really, I would be selling this to those small organizations so that the employees could have benefits to be able to volunteer more. Does that make sense? You're on mute.
Let me try this. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't speaking in terms of small companies as sponsors, but rather small organizations with no corporate sponsorship. You get your funding through the corporations that sponsor these groups or these events or things like that. Suppose I'm a nonprofit who's supported by a community involvement or community funds that doesn't have a corporate sponsor.
Well, our business model is we give this tool to nonprofits for free. Our business partner, our business model is to sell to organizations.
Okay, so you're not as concerned about whether they're sponsored or not. They still have an opportunity to use your site.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of, you have to have, I think your questions are around the scalability aspect of this. And the pricing aspect is, we're selling, we want the entire organizations. We have very small clients right now, and we want all of the organizations as we continue to grow. We want every employee to have this license. So as we start off, $60 is our model, but we're looking at companies, and as long as we're able to support it and make sure that this is something that an organization would benefit from, we're more or less there to make a deal. That's sort of how it works. But to start off, we figure $60 per license per year is a good starting point.
I had a question. Are you targeting any companies that have a younger group market, like 22 to 30-year-old employees?
That's where a majority of these statistics are actually come from. We have really seen that millennials, the generation younger than millennials, are looking at organizations in the light that they would like to work with companies that have more community engagement and are responsible organizations. So we're what is called a certified B corporation, which ultimately is a recognition that we approach a business model in an ethical way. And this is a license that's gaining some measurements slowly but surely in North Carolina. But this is sort of the culture and the organizations that we're looking to work with. We're looking to work with organizations that are more progressive and forward thinking, where hey, it would be nice if my employees had a little bit more chance to volunteer. If they've never done this before, this is something that can walk them down the aisles and connect them to different nonprofit opportunities. That's the idea.
So Edward, I have a question. So I work with many rescues in our area, and I see that you have the Indiana Bulldog Rescue. So exactly what is Indiana Bulldog Rescue soliciting here? I mean, what do they want? What are they going to get from this?
So we market the Indiana Bulldog Rescue because that's actually one of our partners. We've rescued a lot of bulldogs from there. So we try to give them really just a little bit more marketing spotlight. The idea is that as we gain clients, different organizations, they will be able to see this different movement that the Indiana Bulldog Rescue Team is going for. Now, if I were to work with an organization in Fayetteville, then you would have more Fayetteville-related nonprofits. That's, we work with companies to say, hey, these are the particular nonprofits that align with our company policies. We were comfortable with putting them on the community spotlight.
So the Indiana Bulldog Rescue is soliciting the rescue of the bulldog, correct? Is that what they?
So we're headquartered out of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So that's where my co-owner, my boss, he's very very into bulldog rescue mission that Indianapolis has going on. So in our office, we have several bulldogs running around the office, and that's really the whole point, is to shed more light on what they're doing, and that's something that aligns with our organization.
Okay, so if I try to sell this to my friends in rescue that don't have sponsorship, the service would be free, and could they ask for, instead of donations, maybe donation of time?
What kind of organization does she have?
I have several. They're animal rescue. Most of them are cats. Some of them are cats and dogs. Some of them are cats, dogs, birds. Everything is on the table. There's many in the Raleigh, Apex area that I work with, and a couple in the Fayetteville area.
So it would be, so I don't necessarily know if, I think it would just be something where you and I would have to talk through things more. Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure going through what the benefits of Selflessly would be for her. I'm trying to think that if she was connected to different companies, then she could work with those companies to try to see if they would be able to use this tool to help donate through these different animal rescue methods, off the top of my head.
Yeah, most of them are connected with PetSmart or Petco. Many adoption events are held through there. So I'll definitely mention it and see if it may be something there.
Well, I'd love to talk to you about it more. So.
Okay.
I would like to follow up on Lori's question with the animal rescue. I also have a friend who runs one, and she does days of fundraising for the community. So that would probably be a better service, if they wanted to put their fundraising day out there.
Yeah. So kind of like I said, like if you took Sistel, for example, if I were to just out of the blue, just a Fayetteville company, what you would do is, if they were to be using Selflessly, we would be able to highlight her movement through the community spotlight. And she would be able to work with the HR, the administrator of Selflessly, to be able to more easily touch the individual employees and see if they would be interested in something, to volunteer with her, for instance.
So if that were to happen, you would send this out just to one particular company?
I would work with Sistel to try to get them to purchase this, and then we would work with that particular nonprofit to put that on the community spotlight and be able to work with the administrator in Sistel to help get more visibility with the employees.
Okay, great. And I wanted to ask another question. Do you have any way of connecting like small businesses, and also nonprofits? For example, if the school was hosting a blood drive, they always have snacks and things like that after that, which I know we had mentioned that before, but what about connecting them with a local bakery to supply maybe cookies or muffins or something like that, and kind of connect them, small business to smaller business?
Yeah, this has the tools. This has the tools to cover all of that. A way to do that would be that if I were a company in Fayetteville, you would create a group activity, and you create a group activity, let everybody know what that particular activity is going to be and where the donations are going to.
Because it would kind of be a sense of advertising for the bakery, to participate in that and supply that.
Yeah, I think as long as there's no issue with that, I mean, they're helping out and doing a service, right? So what are your thoughts?
Edward, what kind of screening do you do to ensure that the organizations that are opportunities here are legit?
So our partner is Volunteer Match. They're a national organization, so that if you clicked on opportunities, they can currently upload those 60,000 opportunities. They're a fairly big organization. And we're always constantly trying to hone and increase the amount of opportunities that are going on, especially during these COVID times where there are not that many in-person volunteer opportunities. Well, we're obviously reopening soon, but Volunteer Match, they're pretty big, very well screened organization. That's who we get our opportunities from. And we're working with another organization called Inspiring Services, which essentially can do that stuff in the same way, but more on a regional level. So, it's constantly stuff that we've got to continue to add on our roadmap.
So let me ask you this. If you get your matches from Volunteer Match, can I not just go directly to them and cut you out?
You can, if that's sort of how you wanted to do things. But if you're an HR person, this is where tracking company culture, that's what our mission is. We want to give the tools to create a company culture. Volunteer Match is a small portion of what our software is designed to do. So it's, that's something that it takes effort. If you're an employee that hasn't been engaged in volunteering opportunities or just getting involved with the community, this tool is meant for more than that, more than just a volunteer match. That's just a sort of a bell and whistle that we have on here.
And I think that needs to be part of your marketing, because if I can just, if I have an opportunity and I can just go to Volunteer Match or something like that, and they put it out there and it gets picked up, then I don't need you. I think you need to point out to prospective customers the extras that you provide, the tracking, all the data and all that good stuff, because especially if I'm one of these large organizations that now has to report out what my activities are, that you provide that without me having to track it myself. I think that's a very good selling point, but I need to know what sets you apart, why I need you.
Sure. And I think I probably did a poor job of explaining this from the beginning. So I work with human resources departments. That's what I do. I go to human resources departments and I find the gaps of what they need. Meaning, hey, do you have a philanthropic culture? What are you currently doing when it comes to community engagement? Have you ever been partnered with different nonprofits? So that's really the starting point of this. So the benefits when you're talking to a human resource department, yes, the first thing you kind of show them is, okay, so this is what your organization can do with this tool. You can see a 10,000-foot overview of exactly where every employee has decided to choose their giving, volunteering. You can decide to match those different volunteering. And so it's all good data if you're at human resources. Now, this can benefit companies for tax write-off purposes. So indirectly, we found that off. So ultimately, when you're talking to a CFO, they can see all of this nonprofit giving, in-kind donations, and you can export it through a CSV. So it's actually sort of a Swiss Army knife of all tools for an entire company. That's kind of what we've indirectly uncovered. But yes, to your point, we do market Volunteer Match as something that is a bell and whistle that we have on here, that if you're a philanthropic culture, you do understand where we're going with that.
Hey, Edward, to piggyback on what Cindy was saying, I think, an excellent marketing position for this company would be to market that added value that you provide. And I really think you got to be kind of clear about that, because I when I listened to what Cindy was saying, I had kind of the same thoughts myself.
Yeah. Probably could have explained it a little bit better. So that's the idea. I approach Chief People Officer, Vice President of Culture, these different titles in human resources, and begin to understand their business see what their mission is this upcoming year, see if they really want to kind of create a more philanthropic culture, then show them the major advantages of using this. But ultimately, if you were kind of doing what you're saying, Cindy, if an employee, they can go to volunteer match, but that's more on an onus on their personal giving. So if you're doing something through an organization, this is where you can monetize all of that. Sorry for the confusion.
Well, I think you also want to look at companies that have a benefit to employees, that they get, say, 24 hours or 8 hours each month to give back to the community. That would be an excellent way to help them track that. And that's more what you're seeing in benefits now, is that you give employees a certain amount of hours that they can do community involvement. But then I don't have to track all that myself if you can do that for me.
Yeah, it's turnkey. So it's once you have this set up in the organization, this sits in the box. And when the human resources officer wants to create an activity or check to see how things are going up until this year, so they could possibly make adjustments, that's exactly what this tool is meant to give. So if you don't have a philanthropic culture, it's like these are things that take time, right? So if you're starting from ground zero, at the very least, you have the tools to give an employee access to all the 501c3s in the country very easily. You can create group activities outside of those 501c3s. You can track all of your in-kind donations, your matching donations, all the monetary donations, and volunteering opportunities. You're also able to send out daily notifications to individual employees. So it's an engagement tool, so to speak.
Hey, Edward, that's the added value I'm talking about, is just how you packaged it right there. What's in it, and what's the takeaway for the company to use you, and how can the company use your data collection tools to inform clients of theirs or employees about what their volunteering opportunities were during a certain period of time, quarterly or even yearly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's really funny because so when we created this, it has taken a while. Our goal was to work with human resources, that we wanted to create that company culture, but the indirect stuff is that we've seen that, okay, this is really a tool that everybody in the company, we want to use. So there's benefits for onboarding. So if you, especially during a sort of a COVID time, if you have an organization with remote employees, they've never had a chance to meet anybody else in the company. This can be an engaging tool to where at the very least, hey, they see that Ruby signed up for the Clean Up More Square. I can read about that, decide to volunteer or make a donation to it. I think it can be used as a retention tool to make your company more attractive if you're able to market the kind of community engagement that your company is doing. It shows that you really do care about the citizens of the business that you work with. And obviously from a finance and business perspective, you can show a back of the napkin ROI with your CFO or CEO that shows that, hey, we want to help out, make our company a little bit more progressive than what it is.
So
that's sort of our approach. We're looking for companies that want to make a change and sort of have that idea of, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's see if we can get our employees to volunteer more. But ultimately, it's all about the person who drives this, and it's all about the kind of people that are going to be using the tool. It's our job to help with that engagement and help employees recognize the different opportunities that are out there. But these are the tools, all the tools that you need that are necessary to at least attempt to create that culture.
So Edward, we have a question in the chat from Catherine. She wants to know how you differ from the United Way as a nonprofit.
Great question. So our business model, if you were to make a donation, we make sure that that full dollar amount goes directly to the nonprofit. That's why we sell to the organization. That's where we make our money. We do not take money away from donations. So that's United Way. If you were to make a $300 donation to a nonprofit of your choosing, they're going to shave a little bit off the top to put back into their business because that's how they keep the doors open. Our business model is to make the money off of selling directly to the companies. Does that make sense? And we can actually, if companies are using United Way right now, this can actually still support an organization that's using it. It actually just gives it more visibility to different nonprofits. So if you were to make your in-kind donations as an organization through United Way, which is pretty typical, the employees will actually benefit more by making donations through Selflessly because their individual donations, all of that dollar amount goes directly to the nonprofit. So one of our partners is with the Central Indiana Community Foundation. So when you send money to a nonprofit, it goes to this community foundation and they wire it directly to that nonprofit. Does that answer? Does that help?
Yes, I think Ken has a question, but he's got to unmute himself.
All right. How's that?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I got to hit two buttons to get there, but I find it. This is a little bit off track of what you're trying to accomplish this morning, but something that's concerned me from the start of this whole presentation. The actual user or donator, in this case, I have a feeling that there's not a lot of anonymity here because people are showing up at, saying that they're volunteering to go to places, or are my donations and the amount of my donations going to appear to HR?
No, you can make those private, actually. So if you can actually, that is a great question. You're able to keep everything on a user level private or public if you like.
I didn't mean to hit anything. Am I still talking?
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Well, I'll follow up on that one. Is if the user makes everything private, is that information still transmitted to the organization in some way, shape, or form?
Yes, HR does get visibility to it.
Including the names at that point?
The names of the person that donated?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if I want to make an anonymous donation, I'm really not anonymous.
Well, remember, this is selling to a company. You are anonymous. HR, that's, your HIPAA laws, and that's something that you can't let go.
And that would be something good to point out to people that, some people like to remain anonymous, that there are privacy things in place where your information, because some people, once you give, it's like forever and ever chased by that organization. And just to let them know of the privacy aspect would be really great there.
It's one of the first things that are typically in the conversation when you're talking to human resources.
Well, not so much the human resources would worry about it, is the fact that the people who are using it, the employees, would want to know that their information is private. And I think it's a good thing for the HR department to emphasize to them, and you may want to sell that to the HR that they're doing that, because like I said, you give something around here and they forever find you. You're always on their mailing list, you're always on their call list, you get the robocalls, and it drives you crazy. And it would be nice to know that to tell people to use it because you are protecting their privacy.
Yes, and that is still very much the forefront of what human resources. When that conversation starts, that is absolutely the forefront of what they want to know. So yeah, then when you're getting buy-in or when you're talking to your typical employee, yes, it's very, very regular part of the conversation.
So do you give them any kind of materials that they can give to their employees?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, is that included in there? Because you can tell HR all day and all night, but that doesn't necessarily mean HR is relaying that information. So
yeah, we have an onboarding process, so whenever we're onboarding, these are all questions that kind of come up. Unfortunately, a lot of our onboarding has been during Zoom calls, but yes, that's very, very regular, very normal kind of conversation to have.
I would just like to share that my daughter is 24 and lives in Atlanta, and she would go work for a company because they had something like this. Like, she spends her free time looking for things to do. So this would be a recruitment tool, I believe, for that age bracket.
Yeah, that's what a lot of our research has shown over the past 4 years, really, since we've been building this. It's there's a different mentality with how individuals are selecting companies. It's not necessarily totally based on a salary. There are other attributes. There's a work-life balance that needs to be involved more so than what my parents used to look for in organizations. What other questions? Any other thoughts? Yeah, I mean, these are fantastic questions. Seriously, they're all things that are going to help me out as I hopefully disrupt the market a little bit and try to find different organizations that can see this as being a match and helping support a more inclusive culture.
So if we don't have any more questions, Edward, I'd like to take the last question. What can this community do for you? How can we help?
So, like I was saying, I'm looking for smaller nonprofits that don't have that sort of exposure or the kind of marketing dollars that I can put on the community spotlight, so that as I hopefully gain employees throughout Fayetteville, North Carolina area, they can get more exposure based on those companies that I sell to. Another tool would be, or another ask, if anybody knows of any benefit brokers, which are individuals that basically work with companies to make sure that they are doing everything that they need to have a productive 2021. If they know of any benefit brokers that would see value in presenting this tool to their clients, that would be great. And any good suggestions for our roadmap. That's, we're always looking for things to bells and whistles, tools that could help a company out. That's what we're looking for. And all of these have been fantastic questions and seriously fantastic suggestions.
Excuse me. Are you familiar with Mark III Brokerage in Charlotte?
I'm not.
They are a benefits broker you might be interested in contacting. They do a lot of governmental benefits.
Okay, thank you. But we think it's a pretty neat tool. We think we see it as benefiting some organizations, and we're playing matchmaker, right?
Well, Edward, we really appreciate the wonderful presentation today. So glad you could come and join us. We would like to invite you to come back. Let us know how things are going at Selflessly. We'd like to invite you to come back and be part of our audience as well. We meet every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Currently, we're virtual because of COVID. I want to tell everybody we've got a great presenter coming up next week. She is a Fayetteville Tech graduate, Lindsay with neck knots. So I hope you guys will come back, and Lindsay's quite impressive. So anyway, you guys have a great day. See you next week.